Valley. You know what it is.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another divisional preview brought to you by Puck Pass. As always, I'm KJ, joined by the notorious, the infamous, the hated all across the Northeast, Zach Mack. How are you doing today, bud?
I'm doing good, man. I've been getting a lot of heat lately, but it's the Pacific Division tonight, so I'm all in for this.
Yeah, we'll focus on the Pacific Division. I've got the Brent Burns man bun going. We're going to hop right into it. For anyone that doesn't know or hasn't checked Twitter, people are coming for Zach's head over his Boston article from the other day. Go check it out. It's a really good read, and any sane person won't really understand. Well, they'll understand the Boston hate, but, I mean, you don't deserve to get fired over it. You don't deserve it.
I appreciate that.
Let's jump right in the Pacific Division. We'll start at 8. This, like I said, right before we jumped on. Easy division as far as teams, but where they're going to place, I think, is the tough thing. So who do you have at number 8?
I got no movement. I got the Kings at 8. I got them winning 3 more games than they did last year, but I just don't know. I mean, with the way their roster looks, I want to put them higher, but they just haven't proved anything to me yet. I've got Quick down as their best player. If you want to go skater, it's Kopitar, but I don't see enough consistency out of I want to say offense, but really all of the skaters to really understand if they can make a jump in this division. Do you have them at 8, or do you have somebody else?
I don't.
Okay.
So I'll hold off on. You raise good points, but I'll hold off for a second. It won't take long to get to LA. But my number 8 is the Anaheim Ducks. They're bad. New coach, and I think Dallas Eakins is going to be a good coach, but not with this roster the way it's formulated. I have John Gibson down as their best overall player, skater, non-skater, he's their best player. Silverberg, he's going to be good, and they've got Rickard Rakell, who's a really good goal scorer. But, I mean, Getzlaf is old as dirt. Some people are saying – I've talked to a few people who think they could move him before the transfer window closes, or at least by the trade deadline, which would be like moving Joe Thornton for the Sharks, but he's not even signed with them currently. They just reported that he'll be back. But I can't see Getzlaf leaving, but with the way this team is built, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me at this point. There's really nothing to that team that screams we're going to be any better. And I do think some of the teams ahead of them will be better. We'll just move right into number 7. My number 7 is Edmonton.
Okay.
They're not good. They've got McDavid and Draisaitl. Mike Smith's going to win them a few more games, I think. But there's just, I mean, it goes all the way back to the Taylor Hall for Adam Larson trade. It just never ends. Ken Holland's going to do good work for them in the future, but this year it's just too soon. They were so bad last year, and could they be worse? Yes, they could wind up in the 8th spot in this division, but there's no way this team makes the playoffs, and they're far and away bottom 3 in this division.
Okay. Very interesting. You'll have to wait a while until I get to the Oilers. But I've got at 7, I've got the Canucks, and I know this might.
All right, that was a great episode, everybody. We will see you next week. God,
I was just going to say, I knew that you weren't going to like that. But I've got Elias Pettersson down as their best player. Far and away. I just don't know about this team. I don't know how they put up the points they put up last year. I don't think that they get anywhere close. I've only got them a point ahead of the Kings, honestly. I've got the Kings at 77 points and the Nucks at 78. I'm just not convinced enough to see where this team can go. And it's that for that reason alone, I can't put them any higher because I just don't know.
I mean that's fair. They're inconsistent at best. But I just, like we talked about with the Atlantic too. Like I was expecting the worst from some of those teams and the best from other teams. And for this team, for that Vancouver team, I'm expecting the best. But we can get into that later. Who do you have at number 6?
At number 6, I got the Ducks. I also got them only a point ahead of the Canucks. So I pretty much resonate with everything you said. I've got written down Getzlaf is their best player, but he's getting old. I also got written down Silverberg could produce, which you also mentioned. I've also got written down that they're so sad, which is also what you mentioned. They're just bad. I don't. They could very well slip behind the Canucks too. I gave them the benefit of the doubt because I'm just not a Canucks fan, but but I think that they could be interchangeable. The Ducks could very well fall to 7, but I agree with you. I don't see them anywhere near the top of the division, far and away bottom 3.
Yeah, and the thing with John Gibson in net for them is he could win a few more games, or they could just be so bad that there's nothing he could do. Like they're going to lose a lot of like 2-1, 1-0 games this year. And that's fair to. This Canucks thing, it just threw me off my game so much. I thought we'd be arguing like way down the road about the Canucks, but that's a good point about the Ducks. I mean, bottom 3, Edmonton and Anaheim are definitely 2 of the bottom 3 teams for both of us, it seems like. And the Kings are so sad. No, that's a good point. My number 6 is the Kings. Same reasons. I have Doughty as their best player. He's not getting old, but sometimes shows signs of not being as elite as he always has been. He's got that massive contract. Andrei Kopitar is still good. Obviously, Dustin Brown's never been a great player, but he's still in the locker room. Like the Kings have guys in the locker room that could help that be a better team.
I agree with that 100%. And I'm wondering. My question to you, I guess, is because you've got him at 6, I've got him at 8. Is what improves for them to move up in the division? Because I understand, like on paper, they look very good, and they've got those guys in the locker room that they need in the locker room. And I'm wondering, in your mind, what do they put together to get there?
Well, I think Jonathan Quick stays healthy. I think that's a big part of it. They've got younger guys who have been coming up, and they played a lot last year because of injury and being so bad. How teams do that. I think there's enough. You'll get enough of Kopitar and Doughty and good, not great Jonathan Quick to keep them at 6. I mean, they're not going to be like way better than they were last year, but better than the Ducks for sure. I can at least say that they'll be better than the Ducks. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is, and I have circled, Jonathan Quick stays healthy and plays more, because when he played last year, he was good. He's not great, and I don't think we're ever going to see 2012, 2014 Jonathan Quick ever again. But when he's good, he's great. But I just think he'll be good this year. Right along to number 5. This is where, before we even get into like the middle of the road of this division, I think this is where we're either going to be right on with each other. Well, not right on because of your number 7 pick, you dick. But the rest of it, like this is a really weird middle of the road division, because these teams in the middle of the Pacific have the toughest job, because 5 Central teams are the most likely playoff options. And we'll get into the Central later with our previews, but these teams are going to have the toughest jobs, the one who aren't going to be in the top 3 of the playoff race.
All right, so who do you got at 5?
The Arizona Coyotes. I think they're border, like 5 is because I don't think they're going to be a bad team in this division, but I'm not quite ready to make them a playoff team. But, I mean, I have Oliver Ekman-Larsson as their best player. He's always had a soft spot in my heart because he was so good on such a bad team for so long. And they've got a lot of good pieces, and they just got Phil Kessel. Huge get. And they were kind of teetering on almost being a bubble team last year. I think they're good enough to make the playoffs. I don't know if they're ready to make the playoffs.
Okay, that's a good point, and I'm going to piggyback off that because I also have the Coyotes at 5.
There we go.
I've actually got them tied with the 4 spot, but I got them losing the tiebreak. I got Kessel down as their best player. With him being 31, I think a lot of what you mentioned, I don't see them being a playoff team yet, especially in this division. And I really think that Phil Kessel could get burnt out being the only guy there. I mean, you mentioned Ekman-Larsson. They've also got Soderberg. But I really think Kessel could get into the mindset where he's like, I'm the only one pulling the weight here. And that could be enough, I think, to drop them down to the 5th spot rather than being a 4 contending for a wild card spot.
I mean, it could remind him of his kind of towards the end of his Toronto days when he was the only guy pulling the weight, and he was, taking baseball swings at Chara and all the big guys. I mean, Grabner, decent. Christian Fisher was okay. I'm just looking at their lineup right now. I mean, they've got decent guy, Nick Schmaltz. He was good for the Blackhawks for a little while. Clayton Keller, we're still waiting to see from, and their defense is just okay. In Antti Ranta, however you want to pronounce it, if he's good in net, they're a pretty good team. And I can't even remember the last time I said the Coyotes were a pretty good team. And they need to gain momentum now, because I know this is way into the future, but they need to gain momentum now because they're going to be a Central Division team in 2 years' time with Seattle coming into the league. By the way, congrats Seattle and Ron Francis. That's a great hire for them. But Arizona, this is the year to kind of establish yourself as not the worst team in your division. And I think really a sixth or better, but for the sake of where I had them, fifth or better is a huge mark for the Coyotes. I think that would be really good for them. Now we get into presumable playoff teams. Who do you have at 4?
So at 4, I do have the Edmonton Oilers. I said we have to hold out a little bit. I'm going a little bit out on a limb with this, but I do think that this could be finally the year that they figure it out. I've got McDavid down as their far and away best player. They've also got Leon Draisaitl, like you mentioned earlier. I really just think that this could be the year that the Oilers put it together. Whether they do it for McDavid or not, I don't think that's actually a thing. But
do it for me.
They've got you mentioned Mike Smith. I think he wins them. You said a couple more games. I think he wins them a few more games. And I've got him, like I said, I mentioned earlier, I've got him tied with the 5th spot, the Coyotes. I got them both at 87 points, which is not enough to get into the playoffs anyway. So I just think they win via tiebreak to get in the 4th spot. I don't think that they're a playoff team, but I think that they could finish 4th in this division.
Okay. I don't like to yell at you. I love you. I don't like to yell at you. But here are some of the names that are going to have to come up big for them to be a playoff team.
Sure.
Colby Cave, Josh Archibald, Kyle Brodziak, Zach Kassian, Juhar Kyrou, Milan Lucic, Matt Benning. Those are the guys that are going to have to play well, and I will just never concede that those guys are going to do enough to help McDavid get to the playoffs. McDavid is far and away a top-tier player in the league. Arguably number 1. He's my number 2, but there's just not enough to – and don't get me wrong, I'm kind of hoping they're bad just for him to demand a trade with that contract, just to watch the world explode. But there's just not enough. Puljujarvi wants out. So already the locker room has a little bit of a tiff in it. You'd think Draisaitl is a 50-goal scorer. They've got a pretty good cast around McDavid. Not enough to get them anywhere close in my mind. But hey, you went out on a limb. We love you for your hot takes. And weekend hockey's still great, but I won't burn you at the stake for that. As long as you promise to love me in return for my number 4, the Vancouver Canucks.
God, I can't wait to hear why.
Well, first off, their best player, Pettersson's a great player. Their best player is Brock Besser. Goal scorers win you games. Brock Besser's a sniper. He's going to be way better this year than he was last year. Closer to his rookie year than he was last year. They got to sign him, obviously. I mean, their best player isn't even technically signed with them right now. They got to find the money. They signed Michael Ferland. That's a really good signing. Goaltending will be good, not great, but I think you can say that with a lot of bubble playoff teams. This team is just really coming together. I think they're getting the front office support that they finally need. Benning hasn't been perfect, but he's made good moves to make this a good team. I think they're ready for the playoffs, and Pettersson is a year away from being their best player. Don't get me wrong, and he's a hell of a player. But there's enough there that convinces me that they're better than the other 4 teams that haven't really said anything other than, or haven't really done anything other than be bad. And I think the Canucks are trending the right way as opposed to the other, outside the Coyotes, the other teams in this division. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see one of those teams, Edmonton or Vancouver. I think the public would probably lean Vancouver if they had to pick, but one of those teams could be in this 4th spot without a doubt. And I like that there are different opinions, but what were you going to say about Vancouver?
No, yeah, I like the fact that, I mean, obviously, I think they have a chance to be better than the other teams we've listed so far. If memory serves me correct, we've probably got the same top three. I don't know if we'll place them the same, but I think we've covered the same teams so far. So I think there's a good chance that, yeah, they could sneak up into the fourth spot. I just don't, like I said, I haven't seen enough, but I think you're right. I think they could be the one of the bottom group. My question is, are they a 4 seed that threatens for a wild card spot for you or no?
See, that's where my heart is torn.
Okay.
Because the 4 seed in the Pacific, I can only assume, is right around the 5 seed in the Central. You know who I've got as a 5 seed in the Central. I won't spoil it. You and the listeners and the viewers and everything, you can probably gather a guess at who I have at the 5 spot in the Central. In a vacuum, yes, I think they're a wild card playoff team. If you had to ask me, including the rest of the league, it's tough. But right now, I definitely put them in as a 7 or 8 seed. I think there's enough there. They'll get pummeled in the first round, but they're back to a playoff team, and I think that's really good for them. I do think we'll have the top 3. I think it's in different order. Do you want me to break your heart with my number 3, or do you want to go first?
I'll go first because I might surprise you. I've got the Sharks at number 3.
Okay.
I've got them dropping 3 points. They had 101 last year. I've got them at 98 this year. I just think they're getting. I mean, obviously Joe Thornton's getting a little old, and we're still question marks about whether or not he'll be on the team next year. But I think I don't know. I don't see enough change with the Sharks to see. I don't think they got better, and obviously Martin Jones is a big question mark, and we don't really know. I mean, he very well could come out next year and just be like, just prove all the doubters wrong. Yeah. But I don't see it. I think they fall a couple points, and they fall from 2 this year to 3 next year. That's who I've got.
That's fair. And you lose Pavelski, especially within the conference. That's got to sting. Anytime you lose your captain. I mean, we know when they lose their captain, they pull magic out of their ass. So who knows what's going to happen with that team. Who do you have down as their best player? I'm interested in
I've got Erik Karlsson.
Okay.
As their best player.
All right. Well, they're not my number 3, but we do agree on that. My number 3 is the Calgary Flames. I'm sorry to do that to you. I think they're going to take a big step. I think the gap between 1, 2, 3, and then 4 in this division is so wide that Calgary can take a huge step back and not worry about missing the playoffs. Johnny Gaudreau, I had down as their best player. They're still an elite team. They've still got really, really good offensive players. Cam Talbot and Riddick in net. That's my biggest question mark for this team because Mike Smith was a huge question mark, and they were the 1 seed in the playoffs. So, they were the number 1 overall seed. Yep. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be tough to overcome. But when you score 9 goals a night, especially in the regular season, I mean, they can do some pretty great things. I just don't see them having enough to overcome the top 2 teams. Speaking of which, my number 2 team is the Sharks. Erik Karlsson's their best player. They have enough on both sides to be better than the Flames, which is basically the only reason they're at 2. If I did points, which you're way better at doing research than I did, if I was doing points, I'd say they're 8 points ahead of Calgary. I just think the gap, like these teams can afford to like not kill themselves to get that extra point during the regular season. Jones is a huge question mark. And if this team stays healthy, they could be the best team in the West. I know how unlikely it is that teams stay healthy for 82 games. That's why I kind of had them in the middle just because of age, losing Pavelski. I mean, Gaudreau can't save them in too many games this season. So it'll be a good battle for the top 3 spots in this, but let's go ahead with your number 2 because it's going to annoy me.
So number 2, I've actually got the Calgary Flames. I've also got Johnny Hockey down as their best player. And the reason that I've got them ahead of the Sharks is because it's a little bit of, I mean, and I don't know if the listeners know, but I'm big on intangibles. I think that San Jose, especially with losing their captain, lacks an identity at this point. And I think having an identity in the NHL is very important to be a contender, whether you're fast or you're tough or you've got a team full of playmakers. It doesn't matter. You got to have some sort of identity. And for me, I think that the intangible for the Flames is that they're Tampa Bay on a smaller scale. You mentioned they were the number 1 overall seed. They got bounced in the first round by the 8 seed.
Yeah.
So they could be on a little bit of a revenge tour. And I think that although it's not a huge identity, it's a little bit more of an identity than the Sharks have, and that's the reason I've got them over the Sharks.
That's fair, and that's a good point. I mean, there are people. It's not all about stats. It's not all about intangibles, but you do have to combine the two. That's a really fair point about Calgary because they definitely have an identity. They're a high-flying, goal-scoring team with pretty good defense. But like I said, with them at 3, it's just how many pucks can they keep out of the net?
Right.
You know,
that's a big question mark for them. I would agree there.
Well, let's raise a glass to number 1 then. We agree on something great, something so good for the NHL. The Vegas Golden Knights are the best team in the NHL's Pacific Division. Give me 2 reasons why they're your best team in the Pacific.
2 reasons I've got is they're the most team, I think. And I know we've been listing off our best players, but honestly, it was like I'm looking through it and I'm like, wow, you could make an argument for Marchessault. You could make an argument for Stone. You could even make an argument for Stastny. I mean, I think they're just the most. They can get production from a lot of different ways, and a lot of what I believe for the Avalanche, and we'll get there eventually, I know, but I think that they've got different ways to produce, and obviously Marc-Andre Fleury is Marc-Andre Fleury. That's not a question mark whatsoever. Yeah. So I just think they're the most complete team.
That's a good point. They could play 5 games in 5 nights with their best player changing each and every night. And that's a really good thing to have. My 2 reasons for why they're the best team in this division. My first one's Mark, and my second one's Stone. I think he is a monster difference maker for a full season with this team. I'll just say he's going to be a Hart Trophy finalist. I mean, he's going to be that important to this team.
That's very fair.
It's not really, and I don't want to sound like too much of a homer because I'm a huge Blackhawks fan, love the Blackhawks. Those 2 teams play each other. I'm picking the Blackhawks every time. But this Vegas team is so good, and it's just really not like cap space was most talked about this offseason. I get it because cap space is everyone's favorite topic, even though most people talking about it can't do basic math. So this team, teams figure out a way. Not everything is as black and white. Cap Friendly does an amazing job, but if you don't understand it, you can't just look at it and yell things out. Mark Stone's going to be huge. William Karlsson, Marchessault, all those guys, Riley Smith, they're going to be huge not additions, but to completing this team. And like you said, they're the most complete team. They could be the most complete team I don't know, the Lightning. I mean, they're just that good. And I only say that because, like you said about Colorado, we'll get to Colorado, but they've got a lot of moving parts, and they're so young. This team has experience because they got a lot of guys that were older from the expansion draft. They're really, really good, and I can't wait to see them. And what's funny is I think they're going to stumble out of the gate. I think it's going to be one of those, Vegas is finally getting a taste of the NHL, but they're gonna turn it on probably the middle of the season. They'll probably rattle off 12 in a row. They're gonna be fun to watch. That's the other thing too. Like they are, of all these 8 teams, San Jose is really fun to watch. But Vegas they're gonna fly, they're gonna hit, they're gonna score a lot of goals, and they're gonna probably shut out quite a few teams too. I think it's gonna be a really good season for the all top 3 of those teams, but Vegas in particular. I'm really excited for this season.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think honestly, I'd have them as the best record in the West. I would waffle a little bit on whether they had the best record in the NHL, but yeah, I would agree with you. I pretty much parallel on all your takes right there. I think that they have. I would agree. I think they're going to stumble out the gate, much like they did this past season, I should say. But you're right. I think they figured it out. I think they can. And Gerard Gallant is a great coach. Like I think.
Oh yeah, I totally missed that. Yeah.
Very underappreciated, and I think you're right. Even if they do stumble out the gate, he's somebody who can figure it out, and they go on that 12, 14, 15 game win streak, whatever it is, and I think they come out on top of this division. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Any last notes on the Pacific Division?
I don't have any hard-hitting takes. I mean, I hope the Oilers do well. I mean, honestly, for my hat collection, which I don't know if you can see it back here or not, but the Oilers have such a sad hat variety online. I need them to do good so that they up that.
Well, it's because everyone that puts on the Oilers draft day hat is very sad. So it just kind of It kind of works out. Yeah, I don't have anything to add on the Pacific either. It's going to be a good division. The West is going to be fun, and we're only halfway done with the West. We're only halfway done with the East. We're only halfway done with the NHL. That's what's so fun about this. Guys, this was part 2 of the 4-part divisional breakdown, look-in, however you want to call it. Next.
I have no idea, but if you could tell me, that'd be great.
I keep a lot of things from old Zachariah. Ladies and gentlemen, we're moving to the other part of the East. We're going to be covering the Metro Division. That means Sidney Crosby. That means Alex Ovechkin. That means the Islanders. Yikes. We're having so much fun bringing this to you. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, go check that out. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. That does a ton for us. And a real quick shout out to Pirani's Hockey World. We love you guys. Thank you so much for sponsoring Puck Puck Pass. For anyone who didn't know that was official, it is official. And we're really thankful for you guys.
Check them out.
Check them out. Great. If you play hockey, even if you play street hockey, go check out their stuff. They have an amazing selection, and there'll be a link in the description. For Zach Mack, the most hated man in the New England area, I am KJ with my Golden Knights hoodie. We'll see you guys next time with the Metro Division.
Valley. You know what it is.